Hello everybody, welcome back to my Pokemon review series. In this episode I'm going to be going over the Gengar. Now, Gengar, I believe it to be one of the stronger Pokemon in this game. It's very interesting why though. Now, it's a Ghost Berry Pokemon, but it's dozing, which is pretty typical for the Ghost Berry or the Ghost Specialists, Ghost Pokemon. It's got the ingredient specialty. Now, ingredient specialists, they typically have a lot that you need to be considering when it goes into them. It's got the Charge Strength S main skill, which is the variable version, slightly better than the fixed version, but it's got a pretty low 2 point... Well, actually that's decently high for a non-skill specialist, especially one that's as fast as the Gengar. Now, it's got a really low ingredient rate for an ingredient specialist. I believe it's the second lowest of any ingredients, fully evolved ingredient specialist, just right after Comfey, I believe. But it's got such a fast speed that it does not matter that its ingredient rate is low, because it still kicks out a lot of ingredients. And one very unique thing about the Gengar is that it actually is arguably better than the Banette for berry production, which is weird. Arguably, not necessarily, but anyway. Inventory space. Now, its inventory is a bit on the lower side for an ingredient specialist that relies so much on speed over ingredient procs, because typically speaking, if it's a lower inventory, then you want a higher ingredient proc rate, because then it's not getting bloated with a bunch of berries. It's getting just an inventory full of ingredients, so he can't really make the most out of his inventory. However, he does have 2 stages of evolution that brings him to from 18 to 28. And then after that, it goes to 36. Now, like I said, this is actually more than like Blastoise and Venusaur. I think they're at 17, if I recall correctly. I'll fact check myself right here. I know the Venusaur was, 17. So it's more than other ingredient specialists by 1, but not significant enough to make up for just how many more berries it's producing over those ingredients. But as long as you're collecting relatively frequently, it's not that big of a deal. But maybe not the best consideration unless you have Berry Finding S to run it on a team that you're not checking that often, just because of that inventory problem. Now, it's got what I think is one of the strongest ingredient lists in the game, is its biggest strength. Now, it's got Herb, Mushroom. Before the release of Quagsire, which was relatively recent as of the time of this video, the Mushroom was exclusive to the Gengar line for ingredient specialists, and it only existed level 30 and beyond. So well, let me back up. It was the only one that had mushrooms at level 30 and 60. There were some Pokemon that were ingredient specialists that had it at 60, but the Gengar was the only one that had it at level 30, and there was nobody that had it at level 1 at that point. Now he has been kind of power crept at the Mono Mushroom build by Quagsire, but the difference is not as significant as you would expect. If we take a look at the production comparison, and just throw in a mono mushroom Quagsire that's level 60, and we compare that to a Gengar who's got the Herb Mushroom build at level 60, you can see that it's a difference of 48 versus 44. It's not really that big of a difference, and that's primarily just off of Gengar's absurdly fast speed. His speed is 36 minutes and 40 seconds. That is the fastest non-legendary speed in the game. He is tied for that role with the Raichu and the Jolteon. So, he is fast. The only Pokemon faster than him is Raikou, who is currently the fastest Pokemon in the game. So, he's not that bad for ingredient production for Mushroom Mono build. And then you're getting a little bit of these herbs on the side, which, you know, on my channel, I like to go over meal synergy and stuff. Something to talk about quite a bit is during salad weeks, I find that these two salads, the Overheat Ginger Salad and the Spore Mushroom Salad, if you can find the right Pokemon, they have enough overlap because they both make these tomatoes. And the herbs and the mushrooms can be made by the Gengar. The only thing you're really looking them for is ginger and oil, which you don't need that much more. So I think even though there's no direct synergy between the mushrooms and the herbs here, if you like go back and forth between between making these meals, you can find a lot of strength in the Gengar using those herbs and mushrooms. One downside to that tactic is that it is going to be leveling, those meals are going to be leveling slower because you're now splitting which one you're making, so you're not going to get one particularly strong meal, but it's an option. And one that I've used quite a bit. I just talked about that relatively recently in my my own playthrough. So, mushrooms are one of the best ingredients in the game overall. It's used in a lot of the top tier meals. You see it in this ninja curry here. You see it in the ninja salad. And even in the Neroli's restorative tea, which you know on this channel, I'm a huge fan of this meal right here. It carries me hard. So, I think the mushrooms are a very important ingredient, and you want to have a good ingredient finder of that type. And while Gengar is worse than Quagsire at making the mushrooms, the difference is close enough that either are reasonable options if you get the ABB list. Another advantage that the Gengar has over the Quagsire is that rolling triple mushroom is a rarer ingredient list than rolling this ABB on the Gengar. Just because we found that rolling the A ingredient in the middle, it's not weighted the same. The B ingredient is a 2 in 3 odds, while the A ingredient is a 1 in 3. So this Quagsire roll here is a 1 in 9 chance of getting this list on a Quagsire, while this Gengar roll is a 2 in 9 chance. So you got double the odds of catching this, so it'll be easier to catch as well. And on top of that, the Gengar is just getting a lot more in berries versus the Quagsire, which is a nice little boost. Now, the Quagsire is more flexible with the charge energy. I like that skill on Ingredient Specialist, but if you find one with Berry Finding S, especially, and here's where I think the Gengar's strength really can go to show. If you throw it up against a Berry Finding Banette, if I can find the Banette, there it is. Level 60, Berry Finding. As just a baseline, this Gengar is actually producing more raw strength than the Banette, which, as of right now, I don't have any event bonus boosting cooking. I don't have anything that would boost the cooking. I don't have any meals in my calculator, so it's just putting in the ingredients as raw ingredients, just filler. It makes the Gengar actually outproduce the Banette in raw strength. Now, if it's a Ghost Berry week, then the Banette is better with Berry Finding S, but with other sub-skills, this thing, if you catch a really solid Berry Finding S Gengar, you easily don't even need to do a hunt for a Banette. So, the Gengar just is a very flexible Pokemon. It's a very weird Pokemon. Something else to mention, Mono Herb. Now, it is very outclassed from Mono Herb by the Dragonite. However, the Gengar is a lot easier to get to level if you happen to catch one with Mono Herb and good stats. And then you might relieve the Dragonite to do more other, like, meal flexes. Maybe have a little bit of corn in the list for the Dragonite. Something else interesting is the oil. Maybe an idea that you might have if you have a really particularly powerful tail team, then the Gengar can be really, really strong for producing the other ingredients in the Slowpoke Tail Pepper Salad and the Grilled Tail Curry. Overall, I think Slowpoke Tail meals are really difficult to do effectively, but if you have a good Ditto, then maybe this is an option that the Gengar could make up that extra oil that your Ditto might not make. If your Ditto has oil leak tail, then maybe you'll need a little bit more of the oil, so maybe having the oil on the Gengar in the level 60 slot, if it has the double herb, is a decent option. I wouldn't really recommend ABC just because there's not too much with the oil and the mushrooms. If you go over all the meals in the game, there's the spore mushroom salad, which actually this is another point if you have the ABC list, but you're going to be producing way more of the oil than you are of the mushrooms, and as you can see here, you need more of the mushrooms than the oil, so yeah, there's some synergy here, but it's going to be aided at that mushroom production if you're going to go for this. So overall, I wouldn't really recommend the ABC list, but I think there are some circumstances where you could argue for the triple herb, you could argue for the double mushroom, or even the AAC as well. Just based off what you have in your box, because Gengar isn't necessarily the best at any one particular thing, but if you get the right stats and the right ingredient list on him, then I think there's many, many, many things that you can do, to the point that he's probably one of the strongest Pokemon in the game. So, as for the value of the ingredients list, if you look through here, the strongest one is, in fact, the herb mushroom, just based off of the raw production of the ingredients alone. But if you can use those ingredients in a meal, then that's more valuable than what the raw value is. So if you want to hunt it, which I do highly recommend, it's a good Pokemon overall, then really the best place for it is top. Its pre-evolutions do also exist at Snowdrop and Greengrass. So you can catch it at those other places, but you really should be catching it as a Ghastly. It's an ingredient specialist, so it wants that extra inventory, especially with being one that's based off of a fast speed and a small inventory. You don't want to be hitting that inventory cap as quickly because of its fast speed, so you want it to be evolved twice to get that extra inventory, otherwise you're going to be having more inventory issues. Now, so hunting it, you can do it any of these three places, but if you need to level it, go to top, because then you also have that chance of seeing the fully evolved Gengar. Something that's also very powerful about the Gengar is that it is very easy to evolve. You can see the Haunter here evolves at level 19 with only 40 candies. That 40 candies is typical for this sort of evolution, but then where it gets even easier is the Haunter evolves into Gengar with just the use of candies and a linking cord. If you are playing optimally and have your 50 friends and have started to hit level 3 with some of them, you'll get tons of linking cords. So the fact that it's the linking cord and the linking cord exclusively makes it really, really easy to upgrade a Haunter into a Gengar. In fact, if you're like me, you won't even have a Haunter for more than 5 minutes, because I just had the candies ready to go and just took it straight there. So it's a very powerful Pokemon. I highly recommend hunting it. You can have it good to go really quickly in the game. And as long as you find the right ingredient list or sub-skills to match your needs. And that is something that I can't stress enough about the Gengar, is that it really depends on your needs. Just because it is a Pokemon that has so much flexibility. And it's very easy to think that one is good for your needs, but it really isn't. Like, if you already have a Mono Herb Dragonite, you're never going to want the Mono Herb Gengar, because that role is always going to be taken by the Dragonite. If you have the Mono Mushroom Quagsire, generally speaking, I would say you don't really need the double Mushroom Gengar. If you already have a ridiculously strong Banette, you're not going to need the Berry Finding S option of Gengar. So, realistically, he's just a man of many roles. And I hope you learned something about the Gengar. Hope you learned how to take advantage of this very, very powerful Pokemon and use him in your playthrough. Thank you.